So, Randy, what is it? What is Wild Hearts, and just what should we know about this game?
All right, so Wild Hearts is a game where you play as a tamer that has two familiars. And these familiars are what you're going to build your deck around. A deck is going to be 30 cards, and you can have no more than two of any card in it. And it has to be of the style of your familiar. So if you've played Commander, your Commander is limited by the colors on that. Your deck is limited by the styles of your familiars. So a style is going to be the type of the cards. We have Might, Special, Ferocity, and Tactics. Might is going to be big, strong creatures that are tough. The Chrism that I sent over to Don is like a big golem. He has block and can't be KO'd. Special is going to be blue. It's the ability to have like maybe negative counters on a creature or resource acceleration. Ways to like interact with the board kind of differently that way. Ferocity, which is kind of above curve, but you're maybe going to be removing cards off the top of your deck or out of your hand to kind of balance that out. And then the last one is Tactics. It deals a lot with movement and card draw and the ability to maybe do things tactically like outside of normal, like maybe send a familiar back to the bench without KOing it, or ignoring the unique rule, things of that nature.
And I can say from my experience, Tactics was definitely my favorite style to play. Just being able to control the board and have so many little tricks up your sleeve is really what I like to do in card games. So that kind of hit the fantasy for me.
Awesome. Yeah, Tactics is super fun. So speaking of the board, so in addition to these familiars and styles, what the goal of Wild Hearts is there's 3 fields on the board, and each field is going to be worth a certain amount of victory points. Now, you want to have the most victory points in each field, because that lets you score it. Now, the creatures don't attack each other, so the only way to remove a creature is if you have an effect that like KOs them, or you give them negative power, and that'll like lower that down, or you can give your own creatures plus power. And then at the end of each round, whoever has the most victory points in each field will win that field. But to add a wrinkle, once familiars are placed on the board, before any other creatures are played or any other cards are cast, you're going to flip over the judge's deck. And that is going to interact with the fields in some way. That might make a field inactive. That might mean they're all active. That might make one of the fields switch with a reserve field.
So I got to ask a question. So this is one thing that's been nagging me a little bit, and I just want to know where did the name Judge's Deck come from?
Well, it used to be a judge's die, and it also comes from the fact that these, like if you can see behind me, like my background, it's a big arena. It's like a tournament. Mm-hmm. So this is like a big, in lore, it's like this big game, like a football tournament or a soccer tournament or whatever. So there's going to be judges that are actually out on the field, and they have calls and they're doing things like the judges would be doing. So the judge's deck is literally in representation of like these fields are moderated by the judge each round, and that is just kind of part of how it is done.
Nice. So like the lore hooks like that in the rules are awesome. And I know for me, like that's very reminiscent of Final Fantasy Tactics, if you've ever played that series of games where there are wandering judges who are officiating your combats and will come out and give you some sort of rule that you need to adapt to. And, like that mechanic, very fun in that game. And I think that the similar mechanic in Wild Hearts is also really fun and adds some variance to the game in a way that is not frustrating necessarily, but can really change up your strategy and stops the game from being just on rails.
Thanks. Yeah, we definitely want all of our rules and everything we do in the game to have a thematic and a real feel for like that makes sense and connects to the world. But we also wanted to add a wrinkle in there so that scoring and feels just weren't the static thing, and it added some level of unpredictability.
Oh, and it's worked spectacularly.
Yeah, I was gonna say I think it felt really good too, and it made each game feel a little bit different, which you like for replayability as well as keeping people's interests. So all the games didn't just feel like it was the same. Like, oh, okay, I got to get the most points. Like, yes, that is the goal, but things can change up a little bit. I think the way that like overall the kind of feel of the way the game played when I got to test it with you, I was describing it as kind of like, oh, you're kind of fighting for lanes like you would in like Marvel Snap, but you're getting that kind of back and forth action style play like you do in Star Wars Unlimited or in Legends of Runeterra, which for me, I was like, that feels awesome. Like you have some back and forth, so it's not just oh, okay, one player does everything and then one player does everything, and you really feel like you get to interact with your opponent and what your opponent is doing, and because things aren't just revealed at the same time, or one person isn't doing something and then the other person doing all their things, there is that interaction between the players, which feels really, really great. And it was really fun to be able to kind of go back and forth and be like, oh, okay, like, all right, oh, Randy did that. How do I want to respond to this? Okay. All right. I think Randy's going to try to take that lane. So I'm going to try to go over here and do something in this lane and play my cards over here and see what happens. And now he has to respond to what I'm doing in this lane, because if not, then I'm going to take both of these lanes and win this phase.
Yeah, we definitely wanted each turn to feel very tactical, like each round where each time that someone gets to do something, the other person gets an action to respond. It makes it feel very tactical, and we didn't want it so people are just like hand dumping for the most part between each turn, and where the other person doesn't really get to do anything, because that's not always fun.
Yeah. And I think that the balance is right too, because some people do like to do all the things, and if you're tactics, you might be taking many actions in a turn. But if you're might, sometimes you just go, hey, here's my Chrism. Here is my giant growth. Good luck with that. And there's a feeling of satisfaction with that too, that makes both styles feel supported and like something that you can do in a way that wins the game.
Yeah, for sure.
So next up is Wild Hearts, physical game, digital game, both, something else. What's the plan?
So the plan after Kickstarter will be the game is primarily meant to be played physically with friends in person. We do currently have in our Discord, we have Wild Hearts Nights where we show the game in Tabletopia so that people can play it. Typically, though, like before that, Tabletopia has been used by our internal development team as a way to like test the game without needing to print out physical cards every time, and that's kind of its purpose. But the definite view and the plan for the game is for it to be physical.
As I said before, I'm looking forward to getting some of those physical cards. It took me, I think, one game for me to be like, man, I need to have this. I need to play this. So, yeah, physical is going to be awesome, and I cannot wait to share that with friends.
I do want to clarify though that we're not going to get rid of the Tabletopia mod and being able to play.
Yeah.
As part of our community, like that's sticking around forever. So,
and that's logical. It's good to have an accessible way for people to try the game and see that they like it, because if there isn't a Tabletopia night, you might not be able to get people like me and Don to see this at the right place at the right time. When you did make the game, though, is there any niche or any particular style of game that you were looking to make that you feel like other games don't quite fill in the way you like?
well, I think the goal from the beginning was to make a game that was easy to learn and hard to master, that fit the role of being family friendly and still going to appeal to people who are more competitive and who want those more complicated deck and game interactions. So, like, I have a 6-year-old daughter. I love to play games with her, but at the same point in time, like, you can't always play some games with them at that age. And having a game that would appeal to her and for many years and appeal to older people as well was really one of the most important goals.
Hmm. Nice. And, I know that with the test game, we haven't seen a lot of the art yet, but those familiars have cropped up. We've gotten to see them. When it came to art direction, was that where you started, or did that come later in the process?
I think it's been kind of hand in hand with the process the whole time. The team we have is very, very good, and everyone kind of has their strong set. I mean, I'm gonna say like it probably came a little later in the process because like you need to have the cards that work functionally before art. But I'm not gonna say that maybe some of the designs for some of these cards weren't like already maybe in their head
Hmm.
when they were designed.
Yeah. Well.
Speaking of art, though, I'm gonna
Oh,
send Dawn some more stuff here that she can share.
just while we're looking for this to come up, when these designs come up, are these concepts from the artist, or do any of the designers ever have an impression when they make a card mechanically that they're like, yeah, it should look like this thing, and they try to sketch it out themselves?
Well, not all of us have very good artistic ability, so like if I came up with a design for what a card should look like, it probably wouldn't look very good if I tried to sketch it out.
Hmm.
But um, that doesn't mean like I couldn't pitch it to the design team for that. But the design is always developed before the design of the card is always developed before the art of the card, if that makes sense.
Yes. And don't worry about it. I'd be willing to bet that you have more artistic talent in like maybe your fingernail than I have in my entire body. So I can completely relate. I don't want to know what drawings would look like if I had to come up with them, because these are incredible that we're seeing here.
Yeah, none of these were made by me. I'm just
Yeah,
Wow, those are so cool.
those are really cool. I love both the sketches that you shared and the full art cards that we got to see as well. I think one of my favorites is the Chrism. It's like this cute, rocky, dark monster, but he's got a bunch of colored gems all over him, and I love him. And this is exactly the kind of tattoo that I would get. So I'm already like, I need more, right? I could absolutely like get this as a tattoo, and it would fit perfectly with tattoos that I already have.
Mm. And other than, tattoos, doing a little bit of body art, are there any other ways beyond the card game that players can get to know or experience the world of Wild Hearts?
the best way right now is through the Discord with our Wild Heart Nights. As time goes on and we continue pushing stuff out, we'll be doing kind of more, I'm not going to say like more events, but the Discord is going to be the best way to find out when we're doing different things as we do them going forward.
And then
The RP, I will say that we are also doing an RPG in addition to the TCG, and that Kickstarter is coming up in October-ish.
I was never here. This is a mistake for my bank account, but
And how does the RPG kind of tie into the card game for people who are interested in card games and either maybe haven't done RPG stuff before or are kind of new to it? Does it tie in at all so that it's like an introductory thing to the card game, or is it kind of standalone so you can play the card game without it, or how does that work? If you could just talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. So right now in the TCG, you're playing as a tamer that is going to these events and competing. And the RPG is going to let you experience the world outside of that. So the world of Wild Hearts is very vast and has tons of stuff. And not all familiars are used for competitive. Like sometimes familiars might help with cooking, or maybe they're doing construction work, or maybe they're doing all sorts of different things. And you're going to be able to explore that world in a different way. So you're going to be able to go on adventures and tame things. You're going to be able to experience the taming process in a little bit different way than just having these cards where you're already a tamer for these familiars. And then a lot of the items that you see in the card game will be in the RPG as well. So you're gonna be able to go through there and be like, yeah, I've used this, I've seen this, I know what it does, and just see it in a different way. It's also going to give us a different way for you to see our villain group in the world of Tetrim. So,
nice.
from the region of Tetrim, I should say, not the world, the region of Tetrim.
I do gotta ask, what is your favorite card so far that you've been able to play with in testing? And if you don't feel like you can say, well, what does it kind of do? Because I do want to know. Like for me, I'm a sick person. I like it when I get to discard cards from people's hands, take away their thing, feel so sneaky. But I don't know. I feel like different people have different styles. And what's yours, Randy?
Yeah, so my favorite card, and it's been reworked slightly, but so it was a card that when you played it, if you were winning that field, you could discard cards out of your hand to gain that field's VP immediately. It still exists to some extent, but it has been tweaked a little bit just for balancing purposes. But I love that card. I love how the bursty it feels. Like you're winning the field and then you play that card and you get the VP immediately. It still has power on it, so like maybe you can keep that field as well and then get the VP twice.
So it's not just you score it right now, it's you get the VP, and if you are still winning, then you are just reaping it in. That's awesome.
Yeah, and I will say the artwork on that card is just chef's kiss as well. It's
All right.
I can't wait
Well,
for you guys to see that card.
me neither. So far, I only experienced one versus one, 2-player format for Wildhearts. Are there plans for other ways to play besides the constructed format that exists right now?
Absolutely. The game will launch with a solo mode where you get to play against like a challenger, like one of the people in the RPG, if you will, right? So there's Valentina. So that's one of our tamer challenges that you can play against. It works kind of like a computer in a sense, like the cards play themselves. You don't have to look at any of her cards or anything. You just flip over cards off the top of her deck or of her hand, and it lets you test your deck. Essentially, it's designed to be played against constructed decks, and really what it's designed for is like, all right, I'm going to go to my local game store. I'm going to go play with my friends, and I built this deck, and I want to make sure that it functions the way that I think it will. How do I do that before I go play with my friends? Because there's nothing worse than building a deck, right? And then you go play with your friends, and it just doesn't work. And you put all that time and effort into it, and it's just not fun. So this is a way where you can kind of play against that and see how well your deck is going to do against this specific kind of, like, is it ramp or is it control or whatever. So it's going to launch with that. Internally, we have tested draft, and it works very well. And which also leads us into multiplayer mode. So the game can be played right now like 1v1. It can also be played with 3 people or 4 people, and you just kind of score those fields in just a different way. So all those rules and everything will be available like at launch with the Kickstarter and everything. And these are things that are already designed.
Yes, and I'm not sure if we've actually covered it yet, but speaking of launching the Kickstarter, when can we expect that?
So the RPG Kickstarter is again like October-ish, and then the TCG Kickstarter is going to be in February.
Well, I don't particularly have a question unless the question is, would we like to reveal this card now? Yes.
I mean, that is a question.
Yeah, I will say though, before we reveal the card, the RPG launch will have promo cards for the TCG at Kickstarter.
Ooh. So if you're interested in the TCG, there is an upside to joining the RPG beforehand. Multiple upsides, really.
Yes. And the promo card is going to be special alt art. It's not going to be any cards that like would give you a competitive advantage. We're never going to do anything like that, but it's just unique art.
Which is amazing because I think this art is already unique. I've already said how much I like the art, but alt art is awesome too. Okay, actually, I have another question related to that. Are there plans, because this is going to also be like a physical card game, are there plans to make some of these into like foil or holographic versions or different variations like that, or like alternate art, all those different things that we kind of have come to expect from physical card games?
Yes, absolutely. Yep, there will be alt art and foil and everything like that. Yep. And there's also going to be a secret rarity where they're going to be even it's going to have even different alt art and foil.
The more shinies you give us,
I know,
the more
right?
exciting it makes those game pieces. So I am down. I am looking forward to finding out more about that once we can.
Yeah, kind of like hyperspace in Star Wars.
Yep.
Yeah.
Hyperspace are my favorite variant. Oh, now I'm really intrigued. Oh,
Yeah,
I want to
I
see
know.
these so bad.
Yeah, and like playing universes, just as an example, we get these serialized rare cards here. I don't know if you can see this super well with the glare, but these are there are 100 of each of these with each release. So you got to be pretty fortunate to open one. But they're kind of like the ultimate sort of chase card and obviously not mechanically unique, but extremely, extremely cool to own a piece of the game's history. And yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what exactly Wild Hearts has in store and if those rares are all the way like that, where you have to strike gold to find one, or if they're a little more common but still pretty awesome looking.
Yeah, I can't wait for the community to discover that. But that card you have is really cool.
Yeah, like if you are an anime fan, that's Kuwabara from Yu Yu Hakusho. I was happy I opened because he's one of my players, but sad I opened as a player because unfortunately he's not very strong, so I don't get to crowd out the bling all that often. But keeps me company on my desk. Card reveal, huh?
All right. Yes.
What you got?
Do you want to talk about the card as I pull it up here, Randy?
Yeah. So the card reveal is going to be Ladysir, and it is our fiery ladybug. So she is in special. The ongoing, so special, like we had talked about before, like special lets you kind of do negative power or kind of change the rules to some extent, right? Because like, so normally when a creature goes all the way to 0 power, they just sit on the field. But Ladysir lets you KO them when they go to 0. So that's just one of those effects where like the sheep lets you take it.
And what's neat about that too is that goes both ways, right? So if it's your creatures and you need to clear space, you can KO them instead of letting yourself get clogged. Or if your opponent has an ongoing effect, it gives you a way to get it off the board. That's really cool.
Thank you. Yeah. So, and then just kind of going back to like the style and the art of the card. So one thing we've done, like you notice, like the latest here is it's on fire, where you might have noticed like a lot of our creatures have like an elemental aspect to them, and that's where you might see the latest here. Like if you notice, like when we played, there's also a latest here in ferocity.
Yes.
So that's going to be where you might see some of these creatures in multiple different styles, but they're all going to be unique, and they might have like a different element to them and stuff.
Nice. And
That's awesome.
do you think that you'd ever open up design space of doing things for creatures that are named, say, Ladysir of cross different styles? So, for example, something that would affect them, but even though they're different cards, kind of treat them as part of a group. Is that something cooking, or would we not see that sort of thing?
Yeah, that is something that you might see later on down the road.
Cool. And now I am just internally recoiling that I've been saying like Latticeer every one of our games, and now seeing the art, I feel like a fool. But that is awesome, and I love the detail on the flames. It almost looks like flower-like there along the back. It's just really, really pretty.
It is. I want this one as a tattoo as well. Just gonna say, I'm just gonna take all this art and take it to my tattoo artist and be like, okay, I want this now. Let's go. This is exciting. Oh, it's very gorgeous artwork. If you are listening to this in an audio version, definitely recommend checking out the YouTube video so that you can look at the wonderful art because it is very good.
Well, that was awesome, Randy. Thanks for sharing all that with us. And before we kind of start to wrap up the show a little bit, Are there any other things that you want to share with us or ask us that we didn't get a chance to talk about yet?
No, I think you covered pretty much everything that I had in mind. Just want to, plug the Discord one more time for people to come and check it out. Today's Friday, so if you want to see the game, we'll be doing that tonight at 7 p.m. CST, Central Standard Time. So.
And if they aren't able to make that, is there a way for them to still check out the game, maybe work with you or somebody else in the Discord to kind of still be able to test it out and see what it's like and give it a try?
Yes, absolutely. I understand that Fridays don't work for everyone. People work or have prior engagements or whatever. So if you can't make Friday nights, just reach out to me. Yeah, the team will be more than happy. If you can't make Friday night, the team will be more than happy to at least show you the game, let you see it, let you play it outside of that.
Well, where can people find more for Wildhearts as well? You've obviously plugged the Discord. Get in the Discord as well, but where else can people find more information?
We do have a website as well, and we do have a YouTube.
Perfect.
Wildhearts TCG for both.
Yeah, definitely go check those out. Recommend it and get in that Discord. Try the game out and see what it's like, because it is a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun, and you won't regret it. If you're a card game enjoyer, you will not regret playing it. Trust us. I told Dankus about it. I was like, "You're gonna like this." He's like, "Okay, it sounds really interesting." And I told him more, and he's like, "Okay, that sounds really interesting." And then he tried it. He's like, "You were right. This is great." I was like, "I know. I told you."
I mean, like I said, hooked instantly.
Yeah.
I mean, Don told me that there's multiple lanes. Don told me there's an initiative system, and we're done. I'm into it. Biggest fan.
Yeah.
That's all it takes.
It's very, very good. Perfect. Well, thank you so much again, Randy. We really appreciate you coming on and chatting to us about the game and sharing the awesome new card and the artwork and everything with us as well. Those are really cool.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on. It was a blast chatting with you all.